Bretto, after an extremely tough 2020 for many, it is so exciting to announce our first in real life event for 2021.
Oh, MP, it's an understatement to say we miss connecting with our tribe, but it makes the 2021 Wellness Breakthrough all the more exciting.
If you're ready to rebound or to make a comeback and even make 2021 your best year yet, you are warmly invited to join Brett, myself, and an intimate group of like-minded souls at the Wellness Breakthrough from February 5 to 7.
Imagine yourself tucked away in the serene Strzelecki Ranges of Gippsland, Victoria. You don't have to cook, you don't have to clean or do anything domestic. We feed you, we accommodate you, we hold the space for you to create your own wellness breakthrough.
Whether it's in your health, your relationships, work, life, wealth, spirit, any part of your life, you can expect major transformation at our most intimate event.
We'd love for you to join us, but spaces are strictly limited to 20 attendees. And as we record this, we have less than 10 spaces left.
For more info, to watch the highlights of previous years and to join us from February 5 to 7 in 2021, go to thewellnessbreakthrough.com.
Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, where inspired women talk about the journey of motherhood through the common thread of parenting, relationship, and sexuality as a path to consciousness. We ask, in what ways can we show up more fully, live more meaningfully, parent more wholly, and love more unconditionally? How can we mine the wisdom from the experiences of our lives and expand into those challenges? If you are here, you care about paving a path of conscious and intentional motherhood, connected with yourself and your gifts, and also illuminating your children in theirs, so we may raise more whole humans who can impact this world in a more humane way. And if you feel like giving a little back to this free content, please become a patron of the show and receive extra member benefits for less than a coffee a month. Or you can leave a review on iTunes and Facebook, all of which helps the podcast keep going and reach more mamas who need this type of tonic for the soul. Head on over to patreon.com/NTM podcast to find out more. We are Julie Tenner and Bridget Wood, and we are so grateful you're here.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner. And today's podcast is the 3 keys to manifesting. So last week we looked at what was it to wrap up 2020. This week, we're looking at, in alignment with Amplify with Intention within Soul Driven Motherhood, which is our entire month of workbook and process to get you very clear on your vision and mission and manifestations for 2021. So in this podcast, we want to make sure that you're also getting really fantastic information and value so that you can do it, even if you're not in Soul Driven Motherhood, that you have a beautiful foundation in which to really get clear on how you're co-creating your world for 2021. So before we do that, I would love to remind you to jump into nourishingthemother.com.au, scroll on down to the red banner, drop in your email address, and once every so often we send you off an email with links to everything we've put out in the world, and then you can pick and choose where you'd love to dive deeper. So please join us at nourishingthemother.com.au.
Yes. So this is such a juicy topic because I don't know, 2020, in so many ways, threw everybody's manifesting plans right back at them. In many ways, if we think about manifestation from the perspective of, you know exactly how it has to look, right?
Yeah.
But to those who had travel plans and to those who had, big business plans, or so many people's plans that they would have likely talked through at the beginning of last year really just got thrown, on the cutting room floor. So it's nice to preface this conversation with that and with the truth that there is so much process and planning to it and visioning, and then there is handing over and not always knowing the form it's going to look like.
Well, I mean, I think the point is you're not solely in charge of creating, are you? That there's a co-creation at work.
It's like you kind of take certain steps towards something, and then the universe meets you, you know, to the degree to which you seek to meet it, essentially.
And everyone you're involved with is co-creating with you. Like, any one experience isn't just set up for you or them.
Yes.
Like, whatever, we're continuously co-creating our reality in every single moment, which means every human that's involved in that reality, whatever that is getting something and working towards something out of that manifestation.
And you've just reminded me of a statement that our mentor has said to us before, which is, whatever is consciously decided for you, you have subconsciously chosen, which feels so weighty and so heavy, but it talks to that, like, co-creation.
Yeah. It is weighty. It's one of those universal kind of statements, isn't it, that sometimes you're going to love and sometimes you're going to hate.
Yeah. You know, because we love to love manifestation when it's in the light, and when it's what we might see as high vibe and big picture and huge goals. But it can be a harder pill to swallow when we're navigating the trenches.
Totally.
So it is wise to bring consciousness to what you are seeking to create and what you're desiring for yourself, for your family, for your broader world, which is what we'd love to talk through the how of today.
Let's look at that. So step number 1 would be to get grateful. So you want to make sure that, much like our podcast last year, you've spent time doing a review of your previous year. And within that review, really spending time mining the gold, or looking for the lessons, looking for what you gained, even in the hardships of which you've traversed in the year that's preceded. So the reason I say that is because you've really got to go through a process of grieving to be able to let go. You've got to fully complete that cycle. So see, hear, feel, touch, taste, whatever is unresolved from you that stays residual and niggly. You don't want to be holding on to anything from the previous year as you step forward in the new year, because if you're holding on energetically, that then becomes bound and entangled with whatever you're trying to create, and then there's this tussle and this wrestle, and the energy gets murky, and therefore the results and the manifestations get murky or a little off course to what you might have designed. So you want to spend time having carved out, hopefully, some really sacred time, which is the purpose of why we're beginning our month with a releasing ceremony tomorrow night, is to really hear, see, feel, touch and taste the experiences of your year. And in doing that, when what is fully seen and fully felt can be fully dissolved. So you've got to really honour yourself, and you can't even rely on anyone else to see you. You've got to see your own suffering, pain, experience. You've got to hear it for yourself.
And so often that desire that we can have to be seen by others, by our partner, by our other intimate relationships, is ultimately really us desiring to see ourselves more fully.
Right.
But it can be hard, and so this is why
so hard
invitation to do that.
Yeah, totally. But I think you can't manifest with clarity if you haven't fully resolved and reconciled your previous year. It's like a bank statement, isn't it? You can't really just move forwards if you haven't reconciled your previous financial year.
Yeah, otherwise it's all just all over the place.
Yeah, you don't really know where anything is, and all of that. So you've got to reconcile, like an accountant, your year that was, and out of that go, okay, well, these are the things that didn't work. These are the things I'm still holding on to. Let me see how I can be with those so that I can fully release them. What do I need to hear, feel, see, do whatever, to be able to really let them go. And what have I really gained out of this year? What have I really learned? What has become really clear to me? How has it changed my perspectives and the ways in which I view the world? Like, what have I gained out of that year? Regardless of how lessons came to you, if everything is working for us, then everything has a level of insight and wisdom in it. And it's wasted experience if you're not going to pick that up and carry it with you. So I'd really love you to sit with what your previous year's lessons have been. And then when you've sat with what you've gained, we're asking you to take it a step further and do a universal flip on it. What we're asking you to do is all of the things that you perceive were missing, or all of the things that you wish you had, or that you're looking for in 2021, we're asking you to see where do they exist in form, space, and time in your year already. So let's say I was desiring a heartfelt relationship with a partner that I wanted to call in. I don't have a partner at the moment. Let's say I really want a deep and meaningful relationship. Then I'm looking for, where do I currently experience the connection or the flow of love and belonging that I would experience out of what I've attached to a relationship? Where am I already experiencing those things in my life in a different area of life right now? I might be experiencing them with my work or my career. I might be experiencing them with my children. I might be experiencing them with my friends, with my pets. Who knows, with potentially a Facebook personality. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, and we can easily miss this because what's at play here is this is the law of the one or the many. So nothing is missing, but it's either concentrated in the form of one, which if that's what you're idealizing is through a romantic relationship. You want all of those traits and actions and kind of feelings concentrated into the one. But if you constantly yearn for the one and feel like that one's not there, it's like you're kind of running after it and it's just constantly out of your grasp. But yet if you can look and say, oh, I can see that all of those things that I'm yearning for within that one person are actually dispersed through many different people or forms in my life currently. And therefore I can see that I'm yearning to be felt and heard and seen. Oh, okay, that friend, I know that friend fully sees me when I connect with that friend. And I know that I can feel touched by the ocean. And I know that I can feel warm and held and nurtured by my father. And see that everything that you're desiring is not missing. It's just in a different form. And when we awaken within ourselves the presence of it in our life, it's like the universe then has the permission to bring it closer, because we haven't said that thing I don't have, that thing's outside of me, it's not me, I can't have it. Like there's energetically a resonance now with what we're desiring, because we see that we already vibrate with it.
Well, what you appreciate appreciates, doesn't it? This is the whole point of doing this, is to, when you appreciate, that's an abundant mindset.
Yeah.
And abundance fuels abundance. But if you're all sitting in the lack of, I don't have this thing, it evades me, it doesn't exist in my life, then that is the frequency you're sending out. That is the evidence you will look for, and that is the frequency that will come back to you.
Yes. And even if you're considering it simply by our brain and neuroplasticity, like if you consider it as a track, like you're just running the same track. Oh, no, it's not there. Nope, still not there. No, can't see it. And your brain can't see it because you've given it so much evidence that it's not there, when in fact looking wider will build your capacity to see it and recognize its presence already.
Totally. So step number 2 would be to get really clear. Clarity of transmission. If you have a clear outward signal, you get a clear result. But if it's murky and muddied and a little bit like, oh, I don't know, maybe a bit of this, I don't know, or this huge umbrella like, I just want more abundance, I just want more connection, and it's these huge waving, sweeping umbrellas, then you get this kind of like dispersed energy back, when what you're wanting is a laser focus so that you're really receiving exactly the frequency that you're after rather than this dispersed kind of brush over. So we do want you to get really clear on what you want. And this means really going to town and creating the list of your dreams. What does it look like? What would you love, desire, want with no limits for 2021? What would you want in 12 months? What do you want in 5 years? Like, it really is about, okay, gosh, I really want this thing, but I'm really feeling like I can't do that this year. Cool. So when would you see that happening? Okay, 5 years. Cool. So it still goes on your vision board. Who knows when the universe orchestrates with your own divine timing to bring it to you? But you have to be willing to say, this is what I want. You have to actually put an order in with the chef, or else they don't know what you want and you're probably not going to eat.
Sounds pretty dismal.
But isn't it? I often think that's a hard thing, though, isn't it?
Well, I mean, even as you're saying, I'm like, gosh, like, what do I really truly want?
Exactly. That's what I mean. It's actually a way harder question than what you think.
Yeah, well, I mean, often we know more about what we don't want than what we want.
Yes.
And it's also because who really, I mean, we weren't raised to ask
for what we want.
Our parents didn't say, sweetheart, darling, what would you love your life to be? Whose parents asked you that? So therefore you don't have literacy in your desires.
No, so true. It's so true. So spending some time, though, really, and I don't care if it takes you, 3 journaling pages. What do I want? What do I want? What do I want? What do I want? You might choose to go through the different areas of your life that are really meaningful to you. Or if you recognize that what you're seeking is growth or a change in one area of life, that you're really getting clear, okay, let's laser in on that area of life. What exactly is the change that I'm after? Like, the clearer you can get with your request, the clearer your result will be. So it's worth really spending time on it. Now, I know also, Bridget, you always say you have to write it out.
There's something about the pen to paper that almost creates more solidity in the manifestation. It's like, and I mean, even when you're talking about that, even if you had to use 3 pages of journal notes to ask yourself what you want, even that's melanating your brain toward the question, what do I want? What could I want?
And it's like planting a seed, I always think, too. Like, every time I write that down, there's an unconscious seed that's now been planted in my psyche, which in some way, like you just said before, whatever is consciously manifested essentially has been unconsciously thought about or conceived in order for that manifestation to happen. It's the same thing when we're writing this out. What if I could plant that seed and plant that seed and plant that seed? It might not be what I choose to focus my manifestations on for this year, but who knows? The seed's planted.
And the process of that stream of consciousness writing practice is also where you start to get the answers you didn't know you had as well, because you're asking questions you weren't asking yourself before. When you get asked new questions, better questions, you get better answers and you get more truth from yourself beyond habituated patterns.
Yes. Last year when we did Amplify in January, I spent a lot of time getting clear on what I wanted. And I was the person who wrote 3, we have a workbook, so I was like scribbling all over our workbook. But I think it took me about front and back 3 pages of what do I want, and then distilling it down and distilling it down and because what it started as wasn't actually exactly the manifestation I was seeking. Not when I really distilled it down beyond all of the fluff and cotton wool I think we tend to put around our desires. So I do really think it's worth spending time getting super clear and concise on what you want, and no assumptions and no just broad spectrum these things. Like, really specific. I want to earn this much in this month. I want to go here. Everything has to have purpose. It will feed this, really specific.
And recognize that when you are coming to this more solid place in what you do want, it's recognizing that within that, it's going to come with its challenge, and it's not going to be this one-sided experience. It's going to have with it the equal, drawback in some ways to
Yes.
to the great benefits and riches that you might experience.
Yeah. I'm really glad you said that, because that was certainly a conversation we had a lot of at the beginning of last year at the same time, was because you have to be careful what you wish for in a certain way, don't you? Because the reality you have is who you are. So if you're seeking to change your reality, you're going to have to change to be the person for whom that reality vibrates in that level or frequency. So whatever you ask for, you better damn well know that you want that bad enough that you're willing to change for it. Because if you're not really willing to change, that thing is not really possible, and probably not the carrot you need to dangle.
Yeah, and I mean also too, why it's worth, this is a good point to bring in this concept of New Year's resolutions, which I think are foolish in the most part, because you set yourself up to fail. Because if you're asking yourself to make a change and be something that your life doesn't even demonstrate is who you are right now, then you're setting yourself up to fail. But failure, it's not quite the right word, because actually you were just staying in congruence with who you are. But if you want to change who you are, that habit change can sometimes or often be grueling, because you're literally on the fly. Like, you know, anybody who started an exercise program, you fucking don't want to go to the gym.
No.
Like,
and it hurts.
And it hurts, and you want to quit. Or, you know, or if you're like going, I don't know, gluten-free, dairy-free, someone's going to like offer you something amazing and you just want to have it.
Yeah.
And the test is what's more important at that moment for you. It's not a failure, because you're just going to revert back to whatever your values are. But it's asking you, do you want this bad enough? Are you willing to do the work that's involved in having this? A little like you and I talk about with birth. Like, there's not a good birth fairy.
Yeah.
Like, there's usually a shit ton of work that goes into that experience, much like someone doesn't just show up on a marathon on, like, game day and run it. Like, they've done a lot of preparation to be fit to run that. And this is the work to be fit to run the year the way that you desire.
I was speaking actually on Christmas Day to my brother-in-law's daughter, so my niece, but not by blood. I'm not sure what you say to that. Is it step niece?
I don't even know what the word is for that.
I don't even know. Anyway, let's go with niece. And she's a fitness fanatic and
niece
completely gorgeous.
Removed? I don't know. Anyway, details.
Whatever it is, I'm cool to go with it. And she just gets up, she's like 25 or something, and she just gets up and just goes for a run. And then, because we're down at the bay, you know, on the coast at the beach, then, you know, pulls her board off her car and paddle boards, and then arrives back home to have a green smoothie. And I was like watching this by going, oh, I remember being that.
Yeah.
Now I was like, oh God, I don't think I can do that. I said to her, gosh, do you really love running? And she's like, oh, I love it. We're like, you really love it.
Like, you're not even just saying it.
you really just enjoy doing it. And she's like, yeah, I like really do. And I said, okay, what is that? Like, how do you get to the point where you just love this level of physical exertion? And she said to me, well, I think it's the fact that you've got to build up to a certain level of fitness. And once you've built up to a certain level of fitness, it gets fun. It's not hard anymore. Right.
And then it's fun. And then you don't want to lose it as well, I suppose.
You don't want to lose it. And I was like, just as you were saying that now, I'm like, oh, yeah. Because that's me, let's say, in business or personal development or mindset, or I've trained myself through the really hard shit to get fitter and fitter and fitter and fitter. And now it's super fucking fun.
Yeah.
But it wasn't always. I was me looking at the 25-year-old going, oh, God, I don't think I can run down my street. Right?
Yeah.
But I just love that concept of it's just a form of fitness. And it gets fun when it stops being hard.
It's almost like once you step into like this your own slipstream in a way.
When you've built that muscle. And I think that can be applied to anything we're seeking change for, is that if you want it badly enough, you're willing to train your fitness level in whatever area of life that is, relationship, parenting, finances.
And if you're listening to this and you're going, oh God, but I'm not that anywhere, I call bullshit, because look in your top values, look where you find ease, and then you'll likely find other people don't find ease in that at all.
Right.
And that is your own slipstream. Like, you've built and trained yourself to operate at a level of mastery in some way, or that you're continuing to practice mastery because, like the runner,
yes,
you enjoy it.
Yes.
Like, you get something out of what someone else might go, oh God, really? You know?
Yeah, totally. So I would just love for you to think of yourself as the sluggish middle-aged woman looking at the 25-year-old fitness freak and go, which am I right now?
Oh, that's good. It is inspiring, though, to watch someone else.
I love it. Like, I love watching it in her. And because I'm also in the back of my head going, I know that physical fitness this year I want to bring up in what has slipped off.
Yeah.
So when I'm looking at that spinning plates as well, I was like, really? Like, how? Like, no different to birth, right? Or whatever. Whenever I've wanted to experience something that I see someone else experiencing, I'm not like, oh God, well, they get to have that and I don't. I'm like, what's the toolkit that got them there? What are the choices that they're making? What is the mindset that they have? What are the beliefs that they have? Because when I can break that down into a structure or a set of goals, I can follow that. And that's how I ended up having an orgasmic birth on my first birth. It was not because I knew anything different, but simply because I'd replicated another woman's experience to get the same outcome, and that's what happened. I followed her set of choices, her mindset, like a template. So I'm looking at her going, how does that get to be fun? I want it to be fun. How? So I don't know what my point is to that, but I was more saying that's how the conversation come about. But I'm now, as we're talking about this, going, okay, no. I can see where I'm really fit. It's just that I'm comparing myself.
Yeah, the form.
Right. I'm comparing the form because it's where I currently perceive that I'm underplaying and she's a high achiever. And so the stark difference feels, well, stark.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting there going, so it would be easy for me to fall into not good enoughness.
Yeah.
Or I could just recognize that my brain is filtering my world for me to see what I'm trying to value, and I can choose to have that be inspiring.
Yeah, because that's the thing, you can either use that space in between to be inspiring and pull you towards it, or you can choose it to be shame-inducing and you'll collapse and then make it not possible for you, and so you'll continue on the same track. Like, it's the choice, right?
Yeah, totes. So that was an interesting metaphor. The last step on getting clear is taking action. Now, you and I riffed around on this point as a nuance a little bit before we started recording.
We did.
Do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, so originally you'd had down there, now it's the how.
Yes.
And I was like, yeah, but like, it's the why, right? It's the why first.
Yeah.
Because so often when we get super clear on the why, the how comes in and takes care of itself. However, it can't just be a simple, I want $1 million. Let me just wish for it and intend for it, and I just know at the right time it's just going to happen because my why is big enough. No. The action step has to come in to get you into momentum, into motion toward it, so that it can also begin to move toward you. And that action doesn't mean that you have to get super nitty-gritty on the exact detail of what it looks like or what it is, but that it needs to be bringing clarity to your desired form or your desired outcome, your desired experience or feeling, so that it has something to crystallize. Yeah.
Well, I just think action is really important, and I think that it's often the part that's missing from manifestations happening. Is you've got to have intention, but intention without action is wish. And that is not a form of energy that has a behind it. Like, it dissipates. So there has to be action and there has to be intention and inspired action for something to change. You do have to be willing to be active in the process of change. And I think that's neurowiring as much as it's habit changing and physically doing the things that create a different reality. I don't doubt that every incredible human across history who's had a vision of a flying machine and of electricity and of motor cars had a vision of what they wanted and continued to work towards it until boom, it happened and they got it.
Yeah.
But had they just sat there and not tinkered away in their garages and sheds and failed 5,072 times and not tried to be the mad scientist to work out how you get there, it wouldn't have just like, boom, motor car developed by a human doing nothing.
No.
Or boom, electricity coming about by a human just sitting there
and just visualizing it.
Right.
Yeah.
So there has to be a level of action that is inspiring and energy giving to you. And I say that with a disclosure that doesn't always mean it's going to feel good.
Yeah.
Because it can be inspiring and hurt at the same time. But that there's a level of, okay, big girl pants on, here we go, I'm going to change the way I normally do things. And I don't think that manifestations work without a level of that.
And it's also so often, you know, I think about this, you know, as you're talking, I'm thinking about this in terms of relationship and also a lot of the stuff that you teach in Queen School. And so much of it is you go first.
Yes.
But yet we often want to see the evidence first that is safe for us to go first.
Yeah, you go first, universe responds.
But you need to go first.
Yeah.
And that's where it can hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can hurt just because change, we think we want change. And then it comes down to the nitty gritty humanness of that. And we fucking hate it and fight it.
But look at the last year, how much, you know, humans have resisted all of the, you know, upheaval of our lives because it reflects, you know, our discomfort and resistance towards changing what we come to know as how our life should be.
Totally. Like actually I was having coffee with my neighbour, Kasha, today, and she was like, you know the funny thing, I look at your book and I'm like, of course it had to be that book. And I'm like, I know. I literally was thinking that yesterday. Of course it had to be this book. Of course it had to be this cover. Why did I spend so much existential angst for it to be something other than what it was always intended to be?
Yeah.
Like, that's what I mean by pain, right?
Yes.
And resistance.
Like enormous growing pain.
Right. I had to become someone different with different thought processes, a different way of seeing the world. Like,
you're a different person on the other side of that book.
Yeah. Am I? I don't know.
No, I think you like that book being birthed into the world and the difference in how you show up is very clear.
Really?
Yeah. There's an integration that happened, I think, in the birthing of the book.
That's so fascinating for me to hear.
Yeah.
It's like watching a child grow, you know, when you don't realise that they've grown.
Yeah.
I feel like it's that. I can't see it.
I think there's an integration, like it's kind of it's almost like, you know how like sediment kind of like settles into like,
yeah.
It's almost like there's a better, just a more, what's the word for it? A greater kind of knowing.
Yes, I do feel that.
But that wasn't, that was not there. Like there was a groundedness, I suppose. Like it's almost like I've got this body of work that's crystallized now into something, and it's from which I
move forward.
Whereas before that the angst, I think that it was also represented in how you deliver your teachings as well. Like all of that had to be played out and then encapsulated in the book. For you to then go, oh, I've got this.
Yeah, I see that. I feel that. That's true.
It's cool.
It is cool.
But like,
it was really painful.
Really shit to live it. Really shit to live it.
Really cool shit now. To live it, but cool now. It's 100% true. It's 100% true. So you just have to decide when you're clear on what you want, what are the beginning steps and the intermediate steps, goals, if you want to call them that, the stepping stones that start taking you in the right direction. So remember, you know, years ago, we did Flip Your Finances, and I was saying I really want to get more financially empowered. Finances didn't even register on my values. Like, it somehow murkily sat down at, I don't know, 10 or 11
but
or
the
something.
Beautiful thing was, even when we did that, you were still really courageous in staying in your own discomfort long enough to go, I want this.
Right. This is what I'm saying with the action steps.
Yeah.
Is even back then when I'm like, this is really brutal, I set action steps. I was like, okay, so the person who's more financially empowered, what do they do? Well, I started to look, okay, well, they actually talk about money every day. They actually check their bank account every day. They actually know exactly where their money is, where it's going, how much they want to call in, and when they call that money in, where that's going to. Well, shit, Julie, you don't know any of those things. So I literally started there. Okay, that's what a financially empowered person is like. That's who I wish to become. So therefore I have to change my habits
to build that in.
To be that. Because once I'm that, then the rest just aligns with that, right? So that began, right, I'm changing bank accounts, did the Barefoot Investor, set up all of our, so I knew exactly where our money was going. And as soon as I knew where it was going, I was like, holy shit. There's now money I get to consciously choose where I put without changing anything else. There's, in inverted commas, spare money.
It's like a superpower.
It's like, it's amazing, right? And then it was, okay, I'm really working on this area of life, so I'm going to stop reading all of the books on relationship, spirituality, consciousness, and parenting that largely take up the sum of my reading time. And I'm only allowing myself to read money books. And I'm not allowed to read one of the books that I really want to read until I've read a money book. And I would alternate them. So it was like a little bit of a reward for myself. But reading a money book was really hard. Like my subconscious just wanted to collapse. Like I can remember just struggling to stay awake for a single page. And then I built up to 3 pages. Oh, my God, I made it through 3 pages. And then it would be like a, mini summary within a chapter. Wow, I just read a mini summary. And then it was a chapter. Oh, my God, I loved that chapter. Give me more. And I was like, oh.
It's so cool.
This is how it stretches. But if I didn't consciously say, I want that, therefore I need to be this, therefore I'm going to pattern change these things about me in my day-to-day life, which is where change happens, not in the huge leaps in the day-to-day actions. If I didn't do those action steps, I wouldn't end up there. So that's what I mean by action.
It's a great example. It's a great example.
Well, because I can so clearly call to mind what that felt like to just just literally want to go to sleep instead of read. Like that's how intense our protective mechanisms are around our identity and psyche. Like we just want to go unconscious.
Yeah. Like the animal that wants to shrink from the predator.
Yeah. And I didn't want to know. And it was fraught with angst and I hated it and I had to understand new language that I didn't know, let alone what it meant. I just didn't even know what the word was. So it was like this enormous growth process. So I had to ask myself at each step, I'm not eating the elephant in one hit. I'm just biting it off. Start at step 1 and just keep chugging. Like that's what a goal setting is.
Yeah.
So I think that when we're starting our getting clear intentions.
And to make it bite-sized like that so it's not overwhelming. Because if it feels overwhelming,
you won't do it.
You won't do it.
No way. I always ask myself that, okay, how this is not feeling good, how can I feel good? What would help me here?
To make it possible.
Yeah.
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 So true.
And the last step, the keys to manifesting, might seem a little bit counterproductive, but then you have to let it go. It's like blowing a dandelion. You remember when you used to blow the wishes to the fairies or to whoever, you make your wish and you're holding on to it and then you blow it out into the world and you watch it fly on the breeze and you just think, I hope it makes it to where the fairies live. You just have to let it go. Like the way that the little dandelions ride the breeze. You have to know that it's enough for you to get clear, set the intentions, say you're going to stay on track or keep yourself on track by daily intentions or daily actions towards becoming the person, but you tuck those things away and you just let the universe decide the how.
Which can be really tricky because you want to control things.
Right, that's what I mean. It sounds counterproductive because up until now I've been like, right, you can co-create, you can, all those things. And then once you've said it, create some sort of ritual for yourself that's like kissing the dandelion leaves to the wind. And then let it go. Release any attachment to form. Release any attachment to it must be delivered in this way. Release any, like, you and I would both sit here and say we could not have predicted anything that happened in 2020.
I know, right?
Like nothing. So trying to just hold on, my way is the best way. It has to be this way. If it's not this way, it's not manifested, is foolish.
Yeah. Yeah, so to be open to see what the form looks like.
Yeah, because it could be delivered in something that you could not ever conceive of because you're living you in your current reality, and the person who can conceive something different is in a different reality and it's a better reality. But you can't decide the end goal from your viewpoint right now. So you set the intention and you just let it go. Kiss it to the wind, however this is, this or something better. Let's do it.
This or something
I'm going to do my part. Right, you go first. Universe responds. I'm going to do my part. Here's my daily actions and intentions. Now you do your part, universe. Isn't that cool?
And I think also, too, it's about how do I consciously create my world to support this as well? Like, what do I need to be constantly reading? Who do I want to surround myself with? Like, knowing how much we are imprinted by the people we spend the most time with. How do I... what do I want to have in my ears if I like to listen to podcasts or books, or, what do all of those things need to be in order for me to step toward what I've put down here? And am I willing to let it trigger me? Because you will be triggered into your growth. And that is good. So you want to move toward that and be with the challenge of what that can feel like. And notice of your own patterns of collapse, or your own patterns of like otherizing, and what you gain out of that as well. Because in our when we do our, which we've actually, this is actually going to go, this podcast will be live just after we've done our Amplify First workshop. But in that, if you join Soul Driven Motherhood, you'll still be able to catch the replay on that. In that, we're going to look at being with ourselves and how we've triggered ourselves, right? Because if you go back and look at 2020, for many of us, just dealing will have been coping mechanisms that we might not be super proud of. And if we sit with that, we can be in shame. And the more baggage of shame and guilt we carry, the lower it tends to increase, or lower it tends to reduce our self-worth. And so we also want to see the magic of where we judge ourselves, and the magic of the denser stuff and what we got out of it, so that we don't try to swing too far from what are very natural human behaviours that we all have, and that when we can see what we've got from them, we don't get to be hamstrung by them. Yes. Which then cycles us back into them again, right?
So if you would love to join us for Amplify with Intention, you can do that via Soul Driven Motherhood, which you will find the links for on any of our socials, Nourishing the Mother on Facebook and Instagram, nourishingthemother.com.au. Scroll on down to Soul Driven Motherhood, and that is where you'll find it. It's just $39 for an entire month, plus 11 plus courses.
Yes, it's so much in
It's
there.
either a weekly workshop or it's a monthly program. So it is an incredible wealth of knowledge and conscious community that would more than happily embrace your presence, knowing that you share the same values. So please consider jumping in and making your 2021 exactly what you want it to be.
Yes. And to connect with you, Jules,
is julietenner.love, and to connect with you, Bridget,
suburbansandcastles.com. Remember to nourish the woman, to rock the family.
And we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
And if you want to support Nourishing the Mother and all the late nights, the early mornings, the blood, sweat and tears we pour into our art, then please go to patreon.com/NTM podcast and become our patron. As a patron, you're helping all of the cost of operating this podcast, the hosting, the editing, the transcription, helping all of that be completely covered, and joining a community who are all about honouring our journeys and continuing to open. The more support we have, the longer we can last. So become a patron. We'd love to have you. Go to patreon.com/NTM podcast. We literally couldn't do this without you. Thank you so much for listening, and please share this podcast with anyone you think it would be medicine for.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives.
Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.